welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight's community meeting for the proposed project located at 3550 El Camino Real in the city of Santa Clara. My name is Steve Lee. I'm an associate planner with the Community Development Department and also the project planner for this project. So we received a pre-application for this site here. Joining us is the developers team from RCD. We'll talk to you all about this project. Just to set the stage, tonight's meeting will be hosted by RCD, the development team. I'm the only city staff here tonight, and I will be just observing and taking feedback back to the city. Any questions and comments you have, if I can ask you focus that on the project and for the developer team to answer. But if you have questions for city process or city policy, you can contact me. My email will be available on the presentation slide. And if we do have time to spare, I can help answer any of those city questions related. So this meeting is recorded and the recording will be made available. So with that, I will turn it over to Randy Gerson with the RCD team.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to see you all, and I'm glad to be here to talk to you about the project at 3550 El Camino Real, Clara Gardens. Next slide. I'll quickly go through the agenda, and then I'll let you know who we are in the team, and I'll review the development overview. So first thing is who we are, development overview. RCD, we'll talk a little bit about our experience. We'll go into some details about the development and the program. The architects will talk about the design, and we're going to try to leave at least 35 minutes for questions. We really want to hear from you and hear what your thoughts are and answer any questions that you have. So we're going to try to give that most of the time. Next slide, please.
You're no longer sharing.
Oh, we're introducing the development team.
Oh, sorry. So you guys, you'd think that after a year and a half in COVID, I'd have this down. I really don't. So just be patient with me. There's things for us, me and the whole team that we're learning about the Zoom, the Zoom webinar. So we'll get there. And I'd like this to be more conversationalist, really, because I'm much better in person. I really like to hear from you. So we're going to try to make that what's happening in this room as much as we can. So I've asked the team to support and help me as I facilitate this, and we'll help each other. And when it's your time to talk, please be conversationalist back with us. So I'm Randy Gerson, the development consultant for RCD. You have my name and email address and phone number. It was on the postcard that went out, and it'll be on a couple slides. Please feel free to call me, email me if you have any questions that we don't get to tonight. Alicia Klein, the Associate Director of Real Estate. She's going to talk to you more about RCD and the project in detail. Justin Tsai is here. She's the Assistant Project Manager, and she's going to be helping with all the technical issues and helping later with the questions. Our architects are Van Meter, Williams, and Pollock. We have Rick Williams here.
Hi.
Rick, yeah. And Ben Shawaki.
Hi.
And from the city of Santa Clara, you already met Stephen Lee, the Associate Planner. All right, so this slide I just have to get through. It's the meeting protocol slide. It's the most dense slide, but I think it has a lot of important information on it. At the end of our presentation, there'll be two ways that you can ask questions. There's a raise the hand function on the bottom of your screen. If you raise your hand, and we'll call on you, and there'll be a place for you to have live questions. If you don't want to have a live question and you want to just put it in a question and answer, there's a question and answer function on the bottom. And you could just write your question in there, and Ben and I are going to try to facilitate getting those questions answered. If for some reason your live question or your question and answer that's written down don't get answered, we have your email address if you write it down, and we will write it back. We will get back to you in writing. But we are going to try to get to everybody's question. If you are attending by phone and you have a question on your phone, press 9 and it'll raise your hand. and it'll let us know that you have a question.
I think that's *9, actually.
I'm sorry, I said *9. Thank you. Meeting and transcripts will be available on the city's website. Any inappropriate behavior will result in removing the attendee from the meeting. They will be unable to rejoin the meeting. Again, we will attempt to answer all your questions through the live portion and the question and answer button on the Zoom. If we miss something, here's my email address and Steve's email address. We're both here to answer your questions later. Next slide, please. Okay, quickly, the development overview. I'm going to just give you the big picture of the project. The site is located at 3550 El Camino Real. It is currently a motel, being run as a motel with 66 units. It is we picked it because it's a great location and it's an underutilized site. It has lots of great transportation around it. It has a lot of great amenities around it. There's, as those of you who live close know, there's a Walgreens and a grocery store, many restaurants, and bus routes right on El Camino Real. So we liked it because there's housing nearby and because of the amenities. Next slide. What we're hoping to build there, the proposed project, is 120 rental apartments, 29 studios, 27 one-bedrooms, 34 two-bedrooms, and 33 bedrooms. There'll be 81 parking spaces, a secure bike parking room, and it'll be 2 buildings. We're going to remodel the 2-story motel, and we're going to have a new 5-story over 2-story garage. There's going to be about 1,200 square foot of ground floor commercial space on El Camino Real. We'll have a couple community rooms, common outdoor space, and a roof deck. And very importantly, there'll be on-site property management and on-site support services. Next slide, please. Who are we housing? We're housing individuals and families with extremely low to low incomes. 30% of the apartments are reserved for formerly homeless households, and over 50% of the units are designed for families. Next slide, please. So we've been out and talking to lots of people, to individuals and to organizations, and to many people that care about the community. And this is what we've heard so far, and we're hoping that we can add to this list. We've heard this is a fantastic neighborhood, rich with amenities and transit. And originally we had 93 parking spaces. We heard that was too many, so now we're down to 81. And that's, Alicia will talk more about how we got there. We heard that you wanted bike parking and secure bike parking. We also heard that security is an issue on the current site, that accessible housing is needed, affordable housing is needed in Santa Clara, and family housing is needed in Santa Clara. So we believe our program meets these goals. We'd like to hear more from you about other goals. And now I'd like to turn it over to Alicia Klein to talk about RCD and the development details in more detail.
Thanks, Randy, and good evening, everybody. My name is Alicia Klein, and Resources for Community Development is a nonprofit corporation, and we have the mission of creating and preserving housing, affordable housing for those with the fewest options, and enriching communities and building lives. Well, we've been doing that for about 37 years. Next slide. And we've grown to be really a regional owner of affordable housing. We now have 60 communities in 24 cities, and we're housing almost 5,000 people. And all of our apartments are dedicated to low-income residents. And we do have about 50,000 square feet of commercial space across many of our developments. And how we do that is we really look at each building from 4 perspectives, making sure that we have kind of these 4 different lenses on them. I and my colleagues here tonight work in the real estate development department, and where we are designing and hiring contractors and working with the cities to get permission and again, assembling the financing. We also have a community development department that helps us, among other things, increase our impact to be a positive neighbor for our surrounding communities, and to fill our commercial spaces by finding local nonprofits or local companies that are led by Black, Indigenous, or people of color owners. Our asset management colleagues make sure that our buildings are operating with strong financial and physical health for the long term, and they oversee our property management. And then our resident services department provide the services to help build community, help our residents retain their housing, and amplify that with health and wellness, and depending on who's living there, either kid-oriented or senior-oriented specialized activities. And in the real estate development department, and also in our asset management and operations, we really do look for each building, each new community to integrate a number of sustainability measures. And we're really early in the design phase here, but these are kind of a little tiny on the font, sorry about that. But these are just images to exemplify some of the different measures that we typically will weave in, from water conservation to energy conservation, supporting an active lifestyle with promoting bike and walking as opposed to car usage, making sure we have good indoor air quality, and when we can, to do some on-site energy generation. You see some solar panels there. All right, just speaking for a moment about the property management, we actually partner with another company, of one of the largest property management companies in California, called the John Stewart Company, and they do manage all of our communities. It's a long-standing partnership. We really love working with the John Stewart Company because we are one of their biggest clients, so they're very responsive to us, and they really bring a statewide perspective. They manage affordable and market rate apartments, and they really bring kind of a lot of best practices into our developments, and we're constantly learning and getting feedback from them about how to build better buildings that are more durable and comfortable to operate over the long term. Okay. And they also make sure they do all of our rent ups. So they're making sure that all of our marketing and the lease up are complying with fair housing, and they're managing that application process. Okay, next slide. And I did want to pause on what is affordable housing, because that term is used, can be used in a lot of different ways. So in the context that we're talking about here, we're applying for public funding at the local level, the city, the county, the state level, and it's that funding enables us to make the rents here in these apartments affordable, so that families with low incomes, it's only for families with low incomes or individuals, and that the rent is capped at an amount that's about no more than 30% of that tenant household income. Next slide. And so just to build on what Randy was saying, who are these residents? So most of our residents are working people. It's just that their wages aren't enough to afford a market rate rent on an apartment. And so those might be preschool teachers, medical assistants, grocery clerks, security guards, and other folks are maybe not earning a wage, but they are on a fixed income because they have a disability or they're seniors. And so and if we have often we will pursue a rental subsidy in the form of a project-based Section 8 rental voucher, and then the tenant, the resident, can pay even less, which is, but all of those rents help pay for the operations of the building. And one flavor, if you will, of affordable housing is permanent supportive housing. And that is where the affordable housing is also enriched with a deeper level of supportive services for those residents. And this is really critical, where residents, they have low incomes, but they may have some additional needs where they're going to be able to thrive in their apartment with a little bit of support. And that might be some one-on-one case management or of support groups or mental health or behavioral health, additional services. And often we have some developments RCD has that are dedicated 100% to permanent supportive housing, and others, like you'll hear a little bit later, like this development, where we really want to integrate that within a larger affordable housing community. And but we will be partnering with a specialized services provider to provide that supplemental additional services so that folks are really can thrive and live stable lives here. Okay, next slide. One of the interesting components about this site, as Randy was explaining, there is the existing motel, and we really see that as an opportunity to actually retain most of the building, but just really bring new life to it, extend its life. And we've done that a couple of times. RCD has completed 2 motel conversions, and we're working actually with Van Meter Williams Falk on a third one, but these are a couple examples. The one on the left is in Berkeley. This had been a source of a lot of negative activity in the neighborhood. We did a major renovation, and now for 10 years, it's been a very wonderful oasis for the residents who were all previously homeless. We added a resident services component that hadn't, and this is no longer the source of negative activity along University Avenue in Berkeley. Kind of similar with the motel on the right, that's in Alameda, and that is now permanent housing for folks, working folks but low income folks in the town of Alameda. Okay, and now we're going to dig a little deeper into what are we proposing to do here. So if we can, this table, lots of numbers. So I'll walk you through what we're showing here, which is really what is the affordability that we're talking about for these 120 apartments. And as you can see on the left, that's our term of art is percentage of the area median income. Then the second column is the number of apartments at that level. Third column is the maximum annual income. You'll see a range there because we have different apartment sizes. And of course, the cost is going to go up for the larger apartments. And then what the rent will be in the right-hand side. And what you'll see is that over half of the apartments are really, we're designing to be affordable for families with incomes maxing out at $72,000 to $100,000 per year. I would call that workforce housing in half of the apartments, in two and 3 bedroom apartments, while the other half in the upper 2 rows are more deeply affordable. They are going to be, that top band is, those are the apartments that will be designated for folks with coming out of homelessness or with special needs. And those will be deeply affordable. And we're also pursuing those project-based Section 8 vouchers so that even though it says a rent in the 500s, those residents will be paying no more than a third of whatever their actual income is. And then that second band that is just a little bit above that. Okay, go ahead. And an interim use. So in this development, because there is the existing motel, which is operating, we are discussing with the county the opportunity to continue to have that resource be available for folks experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness while we continue to finish the architectural drawings and apply for a building permit and apply for the rest of the funding. And the concept here is we will be pursuing with the county is probably some state funding under the new Project Home Key program that does just this. We would be partnering with the county to provide additional services and to fill the rest of the motel units with folks at risk of homelessness. And our development timeline, here we are at August 30th, second row. You know, we're kind of coming towards the end of our community engagement or outreach phase, getting ready to submit a full planning application to the city of Santa Clara next month. That Steve Lee mentioned that we had submitted a pre-application, kind of get the dialogue started. And the type of application we're getting ready to submit is, I wrote SB 35. That stands for State Senate Bill 35, which the state passed a few years ago to address the housing crisis statewide. And so for jurisdictions that haven't completely met their affordable housing production goals, affordable housing applications that meet certain criteria need to get considered on a streamlined basis. And that's, we are eligible for that because we are 100% affordable and we're right on a major transit stop, and the development will meet all of the objective zonings and design standards. So as long as we're not on any kind of major environmental, contamination site. So with that and how we meet those zoning standards is we will also be, as part of our application, using the state's density bonus opportunities for affordable housing, which allow developments that are deeply affordable to go a little higher and to make some to build additional apartments to make it affordable. So we are looking to complete the local approvals process at the end of this year and begin the interim use in next spring. And then we hope to be able to start the full construction of the bigger development by the spring of 2022 and be up and operating at the beginning of 2026. And I think that is it for me, and I will hand it over to Rick. I just want to say that the reason that we chose Van Meter Williams Pollock is we have done quite a lot of work with VMWP, and what we love about working with them is they are so versatile and really can adapt to the particular location and needs of the site, and they really know affordable housing inside and out. So with that, Rick.
Thanks, Alicia. I really appreciate it. Rick Williams again with Van Meter Williams Pollock, and I'm joined here with Ben Schwacke, Associate Principal, and he's also the main designer for this housing community that we're talking about today. Van Meter Williams Pollock has been doing affordable housing for about 32 years now throughout the Bay Area. And we've been working with Resources for Community Development for at least 20 years on a variety of different project types, all affordable housing, buildings of various sizes in various communities. Some of you that, although we haven't done a building in Santa Clara as of yet, we have two nearby buildings. One is Eagle Park at 1701 El Camino in Mountain View. And then right next to Castro Street, just past it to the north, is the 950 El Camino Real, also in Mountain View. And both of those, I call them out because they're a similar scale, height, size, and housing type as the development that we're anticipating here. Next, please. So as Randy and Alicia mentioned, this site is unique for a variety of reasons, including the amenities, but it's also interesting and unique because it has two frontages. It faces both the commercial frontage of El Camino Real, and then because of transition to the residential neighborhood, also fronting on Flora Vista Avenue. So we take both of those frontages into consideration during the design of this, and it creates a unique opportunity. Next, please. So I want to take a minute here to go over the site plan and the ground floor building plan so you get a clear understanding of what, how the building works, how the development works, and how the circulation works in the building. I'm starting along the El Camino Real, which is at the top of the site. You notice in red, we have a large commercial space. It's about 1,200 square feet. We have new street frontage design, new street trees. There's already the historic lighting and El Camino Real signage along the street. And we also have a residential lobby that faces El Camino Real for the residents to easily access the El Camino, the services there, and the transit. And we also have a satellite management in blue in that location so that we can keep an eye, and the management can keep an eye on the comings and goings, as well as the frontage along the El Camino Real. We also have the garage, which is behind the frontage. And you can see that where it says new 7-story building. We have a 3- and 4-level parking in that area. And that is where most of the cars park. They access from Flora Vista Avenue. And we have a small parking area similar to the existing motel configuration in the back. And then you access the garage from the rear of the property there. The yellow is the existing motel building that we're renovating for the new apartments. So it's going to remain the 2-story motel. It'll be completely rebuilt, just keeping some of the basic structure of it. And we'll be putting on a new roof, as that one is seen better days, new walkways, all new amenities inside with new kitchen and bathrooms accessible, and a new elevator as well. We also have the main front door of the front building on Flora Vista. It has a small plaza out in front along Flora Vista next to the drive. We have a lobby there where all the mail and collections go. We have management offices in blue, and both lobbies have elevator access to the upper floors. Between the two buildings, we have a courtyard, which is shown there in green. That'll have play area for the children. It'll have gathering space for the adults. We have laundry on the ground floor, which opens out onto it, so someone could be doing their laundry and watch their kids playing. And the area will be all secure as well. Next, please. The landscape, as I mentioned, has the courtyard in the middle of the project between the two buildings. We have play area for the kids, new street frontage, and then new street trees will also be incorporated along Flora Vista as well. So we'll be redoing all of the landscaping areas along it, as well as integrating in stormwater management and using planting and irrigation, which is also uses the minimal amount of water, as we're all concerned about water use today. Next, please. When we get to the second floor, you can notice that the motel buildings that we're renovating, the apartments will get a new roof. It'll have a new, we're anticipating being able to have solar panels for energy generation. But the building in front is predominantly 3- and 2-bedroom apartments with a few studios. On the second level, it's a corridor access building with elevator. On the second level, where we have, you note the little red, is a community room, which spills out into a gateway open space, which is over the top of the driveway. And it really encloses the parking area so it's less visible, and provides extra outdoor activity and amenity for the residents, connected both from the motel and also the old motel building, as well as the new building. And we also have service offices that help organize activities and provide additional surveillance on that second level as well. Next, please. While we're focusing a little bit on the exterior of the building, I can assure you that as much effort is put into the interior residential homes for the residents. They're high quality apartments with full kitchens and baths, specially designed for additional accessibility for residents. The lobbies are exciting, dynamic spaces, often with extensive artwork and lighting. We try to have as much natural light in the corridors as we can. And then the community rooms are activity hubs, which are really important and often have after-school programs for children, as well as gatherings and events for the adults and for families, etc. I just want to emphasize that many of the units will be built out for accessibility, and all, because of the elevator access, will also be adaptable. Next, please. So the exterior of the building, we understand it is a large building, and we're working on the design to break down the scale of the building and break it into smaller pieces. And as an example of this, the El Camino Real elevation, you can see where it has different heights. We've broken the building to look like it has two different buildings. The ground floor has commercial storefronts, both for the commercial space as well as for the residential lobby. And then we really changed materials and colors along all of the frontages to give it a sense of scale and lessen the impact of the building size. Next, please. These buildings are held by RCD in perpetuity. We designed them using materials and colors, but predominantly materials which stand the test of time. They're well constructed. There is no cheapening for affordability. It actually goes through more review than market rate developments often do. And so we're looking for longevity, easy to maintain, high quality materials that stand the test of time and also have a wonderful appearance as well. Next. And what this results in is that here's a view from the El Camino Real. You can see the strong base with the commercial activities along the front and the lobby. This is behind the existing restaurant. We took this view so you could also see the size of the building. You can see the blue there are apartments that also look out because it'll be very visible from the El Camino looking up and down it. We really focus on the corners, and then we step down on both sides, including along Flora Vista, where we're trying to bring down the scale of the building somewhat. Next. This is the Flora Vista view. I mentioned the gateway open space above the driveway entrance. You can see that just above the Clara Garden sign. The motel building isn't really getting any taller. It's the same height, or maybe 1 or 2 feet taller, to bring a roof continuously up, blocking any view from solar panels, et cetera, or roof equipment. And we have the main entry on the right. We have the other entry to the existing building on the left, and we bring down the scale of the building to the rear. It's about 85 to 90 feet away from the buildings, the condominiums that are behind us. So it's very far away. And we feel that that mitigates the size successfully. Next, please. So I'd like to just hand this back over to Randy so that she can take us home.
So we're a little bit behind, but we're going to be here and we're going to try to answer all your questions. So we're going to do questions 2 ways. You raise your hands and we'll have live questions. We'll give you a minute to ask your questions. We're going to have a timer up so that you could just keep track of yourself, or you could just write your question in the chat and Ben and I are going to try to field them. We're going to try to summarize them if there's a few that are the same. Again, if you're on the phone, *9, and you'll get a question answered too. So right now I'm going to give it to Justine, and she can facilitate the raising hands. We're going to go back and forth. What I do want you to focus on a little bit though is we're still in the design process, and we're continuing to evolve the design. So these are some questions that we'd like to hear back from you. What is your initial feedback? What do you think about what you just saw? Is there if you live in the neighborhood, any knowledge of the site from your lived experience that we should know about? Any words that capture the spirit of the neighborhood? How can this development contribute to your neighborhood? And what would you like to see in the commercial space? Okay, with that, I'm going to open up to questions and answers. Justine?
Thanks, Randy. We currently have 3 people with their hands raised. I'm going to call them based on the order of which they were raised. Derek, I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, everyone. Derek Hicks, representing Catalyze SV and the members of our project advocacy committee, where we score projects based on 7 criteria that we as an organization believe will create more vibrant and sustainable communities. These 7 criteria include community, vibrancy, transportation, affordability, and sustainability, and intensity and zoning, as well as legacy. Last Wednesday, RCD was kind enough to come and present their project to our project advocacy committee and our members scored this project a 4 out of 5, which is an excellent score. Some of the highlights that our members loved was the levels of affordability being offered, as well as especially the inclusion of permanent supportive housing options, as well as a diverse unit choice ranging from studio to 3 bedrooms. Our members also really appreciated the maximum use of the site, including the mixed use of commercial space, as well as building the maximum number of units as possible. The one question our members have is, would RCD be willing to commit to seeing more sustainability options, including solar panels or some form of green building standard in the future?
Thank you. Alicia, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Yes, RCD is interested in committing to a sustainability standard, and that is something that we almost always do. Actually, with our developments, we just haven't gotten to that stage yet. So yes, we are definitely open to that. And thank you for your consideration and your members' support.
While you're talking, I'm going to just, Alex Shore had a question for you and the team. What is your personal favorite aspect of the project?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you for asking that. It's a neat thing to think about. I really am excited that this has a 2-phase, there are 2 phases of the development, that usually it takes a couple of years at least before we can start construction. And then the land just sits there, not really housing anybody or helping anybody while we're gathering that and preparing. So I love that this development, we, can quickly turn, continue and extend the making good use of the site, even while we're in the interim, while we're getting ready to do the larger development.
Rick, did you want to answer that as well?
Sure. What I like has some connection to that, but I like the fact that we're reusing a large part of the existing building. It's a challenge, no doubt, but it actually reduces the size of the front building. We did studies where we didn't include it as retaining it, but we found that we could reduce the size of the front building. We're renovating this one. We're providing some small units for residents, and we're also including families. So that integration of existing and new building, and the existing one being completely renovated, and the families as well as individual unit apartments is really what makes it the most interesting to me. And the dual faces of partially being on a commercial street and being connected to a residential neighborhood. It's duality that's really exciting.
Thanks, Rick. Justine, you want to go live?
Yeah, David, you're unmuted. David?
All right, while David is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just had a question about the extra parking for guests. I saw that you guys had the parking for the outside, but I do live in the area and the street parking is extremely limited. I guess there's 2 parking lots nearby with the Lawrence Plaza and the Walgreens parking lot, but if we're not allowed to park there for guest parking, where would the extra guests be expected to park?
Alicia, do you want to take that?
Sure. So guest parking is going to be occurring off-site. So, and I did see there are some other parking questions in the written question and answer. So maybe I'll take this moment to maybe talk a little bit more globally about our approach to parking. What we like to do for developments where we have a range of apartment sizes, like this one is studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, is that we do want to allocate, and where we have less than 1 parking space per apartment, is we do go ahead and allocate, make available 1 parking space to each of the larger apartments. So each of the 2 and 3 bedroom apartments will be offered 1 parking space. If they don't need it, that will become available to one of the smaller apartments. And then the smaller apartments, which are half of which are dedicated to previously homeless folks, those in our experience have overall fewer cars, more transit riders, and so that does accommodate their needs. And we will be including in all of our advertising, just the kind of being very upfront that, you know, this is a apartment building where you're not necessarily guaranteed a parking space, so that we're attracting people for this transit-rich location that that don't all have cars.
Thank you. Justine, how about another live question?
That's your unmuted.
Yeah, I also had a question about parking and cars. Have you considered unbundling the parking? Because you are less than 1 for 1. And then what do you have for EV charging? And then how much bike parking do you have? And would you have outlets in the bike room to charge, say, electric bikes? Finally, on the rooftop, I didn't know if you had any amenities on the rooftop of the 5/2. Would you have like barbecue pits somewhere and such for residents? And then finally, is there any thought to have raised beds for some gardening? I think that's a good amenity for people for activities. Thank you.
Okay, I think I took some notes on those questions. So let me try to answer as many of them as I kind of took notes on, and then maybe some of the more design type questions, maybe Rick, if you can help chime in. So there are a few parking related questions. The unbundling is, that is actually, I understand. So for people who may not know what that terminology means, that means not including any parking in the rental, but you could pay extra to get a parking space. And that is a challenging kind of thing to do with affordable housing. It requires charging extra for those parking spaces, which is really kind of problematic for the low-income residents. And it requires that we subdivide, make it a legal condo, have it we can't get financing for the parking, and so that needs to it makes it very difficult financially for the low-income housing tax credit program that is the main source of funding. Happy to go offline if you really want to get in the weeds on how that works. We are looking at the bike room at being able to provide at least up to one parking bike secure storage per apartment. So that's what we're aiming for. And we do like to have some charging outlets in the bike room. I know electric bikes are getting really popular, so that's something we're going to be looking at. But also, we often will have a little bit of space in the bike storage room, which I know maybe Rick, we need to talk about fitting in, is for folks who use mobility scooters out and about, and maybe change into a manual wheelchair when they get to their apartment. We may, in some of our developments, we'll have a little bit of space in the bike parking room for electric mobility scooters getting charged. But I'll let Rick answer the question about the electric vehicle charging stations and rooftops.
Sure. So we will be having some electric vehicle charging stations per the state green building standard requirements, as well as any city requirements. We may ask for some waivers depending on how many are absolutely required. We find that with the income levels currently, there's a fairly low electric vehicle parking ratio, but we will be providing some as part of the parking. As far as the rooftop amenities, we like to see if we can not do rooftop. They're very expensive, but we do have the amenity over the top of the gateway, because we can do that in a concrete structure, and that's better for long-term maintenance. We will look at some rooftop amenity space in the front of the building along the El Camino, but we thought by keeping it lower and on the concrete, it would be better, as well as our courtyard is actually on grade, and that's better for landscaping and being able to have nicer trees, et cetera, on that. So we do have some that's up at the second level, and that's really our focus right now, to have those two amenity locations, and one of them is above the ground. So, and we think it adds activity and visual connection to the street while not impacting surrounding residents by having the view from above, from the open space. So. And
one other thing I remember you asked about was gardening, community gardens. Yes. And that is something that we have done in fact, Rick designed some for the last development we did together. It's something we can consider. And it sometimes works fantastically and sometimes not so much, because it really depends on how what the residents are into. But that's something that we can consider.
I think you got it. I was taking notes too. I'm hoping you've answered all those questions. If not, please put them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them. I was going to just say there's a couple more questions about bike parking and talking about kids parking and tricycles. And I think that those are really good points. I see them, and we could talk to the design team about making sure there's room for everything. Do you want to have another live question, Justine?
Yeah, Rishi?
Hi. So, there's going to be like commercial plaza made as well. So what do you guys have planned for? Where are those people going to park? Like the people who are working at the commercial plaza and people who are visiting the commercial plaza?
Yeah, great question, Rishi. We are planning to, within our parking, we will have a number of the parking spaces designated for the staff of the commercial space. It's not that big of a commercial space, so that would be just a small handful. And we're going to be looking for a commercial tenant that does not require folks to drive there. So because it doesn't have any customer parking, as so to speak. So it may be a bike repair shop. It may be a nonprofit organization that is that folks generally would visit by transit or you know, not vehicles. But that is a little tricky. So we definitely, you know, want to find a commercial tenant where it's not gonna, folks are not planning to get there by car. So that will be, you know, we would love any suggestions that the immediate neighborhood may want, because you're not going to drive there if you live right there. So actually, we're really interested to hear if folks have any. I mean, I know there's so much wonderful stuff already in the neighborhood, but if there's anything like, wow, I always wish we had a fill in the blank, you know, what might you like to see there? Because we would love to be a place that folks can just walk or bike to.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in. Alex wrote in the Q&A some response to some of the parking concerns. If people want to read them, I'll leave them up in there. I'll put them in the answered portion, and then you'll be able to see them. Okay. I also Rishi had a question in the Q&A that I want to read. Well, would there be any, and this is for Rick, will there be any windows added to the existing motel rooms on the backside facing the existing residence?
We are looking at providing some windows on the back. On the ground floor, which is kind of behind the existing wall for sure, because if we have a bedroom that faces to the rear, we would need to have a exit window. So it would probably be below the wall. We're studying the second floor as to whether or not we need to have windows on the second floor. If we do, we can also provide them in a way that provides privacy as well. So we will look into that with great detail, because we know that that's a sensitive issue.
Rick, while you're talking about privacy, there is a question in the chat. Won't the height of the building have privacy issues for the nearby single family homes?
Yeah, we actually have been looking at that, and we're looking at kind of what you see from like the top floor. I believe we may have a slide on, I think it's slide 50. I'm not positive.
I think it's the very last slide.
The very last slide. But we're about 85 to 90 feet away from the condominiums right behind us. So if you went to the very last slide, if you can. Yeah, that one there. So we've been able to kind of look at, if you were looking from a top floor window and looking at the condominiums behind the existing motel building, which you can see in between, it's about 85 to 90 feet. And much of it is blocked from the motel, except for the very top floor. And we feel that being 85 to 90 feet away is a very far distance for any privacy issues to be of concern.
Thank you, Rick. I just want to acknowledge that we're about 7 minutes to 7. The development team is going to stay and keep answering questions. And we're going to just keep running through this. We're not going to walk off at 7 o'clock because there seems to be a lot more questions to answer. Justine, why don't you go live?
Housing Action Coalition, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So hey, my name is Kat. I work for a company called the Housing Action Coalition, but I'm actually just representing myself tonight. I live not too far from this project in Sunnyvale. I'm really excited about this project, actually. Like, most of my friends that are in that range of extremely low income, which is, to be honest, a lot of my friends, have moved away from this area. So I think we need more housing like this. I understand concerns of the folks that do live really close to this project. But I'd really just love to hear from the project team, like, kind of what next steps are for this proposal, and like, how do you see yourself kind of picking like who will live there eventually? Like how many people will this proposal serve?
Alicia?
Yeah. Well, the next steps are deepening our collaboration with the county, which we're pursuing assistance to buy the site, and then applying together to the state for the home key funds that will help us get ready for that interim use. Right now the motel is 66 motel rooms, but ultimately we're hoping to create a total of 120 apartments. So, and some of them, large apartments. So we could be housing, providing homes for over 200 people on site, including kids and seniors and families and individuals, kind of the whole gamut. I did see another question about what about seniors? So maybe I'll weave that into my answer, which is that when I say the word family, that doesn't necessarily mean parent and child. That just means for a 2-bedroom apartment, you need to have, the minimum size of a renter household could be 2 people, and you could have as many as 5 people. But that 2 people could be spouses or a person and a caregiver, so within our any of these apartments, of course, we welcome seniors or adults of any age, and people can stay and as they age up and for however long that they are able to. We do have other developments that are 100% senior, but that's not the concept here.
I'm going to jump right into another question I see in the Q&A, which is how come the homeowners next to this complex haven't been informed of this? The same person has asked they want more information. How come they didn't get information?
So we actually, Randy and I, a couple of weeks ago, we did knock on the doors of the first row of the townhomes that are immediately adjacent. And we met with several residents. I don't know if any of you are here, but it was really nice to meet those folks. And then for the folks who weren't home when we came to the door, we did leave information about the development, but we didn't try to hit the whole condo association. So we're more than happy to come and talk to the rest of the homeowners association if you'd like. And we did mail invitations to tonight's meeting to the city kindly provided a mailing labels for everybody in at least 1,000 feet radius of the Bella Vista Inn. So that's where many of you might have received those postcards, but happy to talk more with you if you'd like.
Yeah, and why don't you, Justine, if you don't mind putting the slide with my email and Steve's email up, just so that I want to make sure people see that, take a picture of it. It'll be on the website. We really are here to answer your questions if you didn't get anything, if you still have more after tonight.
Andy, there's a question on visitability of the units, the ADA adaptability. Maybe Rick can answer. It's one of the first ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So generally on visibility and universal design, we anticipate with the elevators that all of the units will be visitable, and we will provide all of them will be adaptable as well. So we build out the units to either, and this is getting technical again, I apologize, either fully built out and sized for what they call 11B units, which is a code, and those are very heavily accessible, and 11A units are adaptable. They provide larger bathrooms. We often do a number of roll-in showers in units. We do those again on the ground floor or the slab, on the concrete rather than in the wood frame. But the kitchens are all adaptable. Many get built out, and they all can be built out if the residents need them. And certain ones are built out as we start the construction. So, but all of the units will be visitable from an accessibility standpoint.
All right, let's take a couple of live questions. We have 4 raised hands. Justine.
Ro, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Got it. So a couple of questions I had. One of them was wondering why the entry was put on Flora Vista as opposed to El Camino. El Camino being where most of the businesses on El Camino have entry and exit for vehicles. The Flora Vista, where the current motel is, where they have actually tried to block that off a couple of times. Cars race in and out of there. And because of the curve from El Camino, it makes it somewhat of a dangerous entry and egress from there. So that's my question regarding the Flora Vista side, entry and exit. The other thing that I had was, is it possible that you could have, the complex could own like maybe 4, 5, or 6 electric bikes that they could just rent to the, for free use for the people there, to encourage them to use them instead of cars, so that they could just use their like key fob or whatever to access the bike, to encourage that for like neighborhood trips.
That's interesting. Rick, do you want to take the?
Sure.
Sure.
One of the big questions at the beginning of our design discussion with the whole team was about where the front door is. And we really felt that there were 2 front doors, but from the commercial side, the front door is on the El Camino, and we have a lobby for the residents to go directly onto the El Camino from. But we anticipate that that is going to be more for the residents to use the surrounding services on the El Camino. But we also felt that this is a residential development predominantly. It's not a large commercial retail center with lots of commercial retail traffic. It is going to be predominantly an apartment complex. And for that reason, we really wanted the front door and the access on Flora Vista. So we really wanted to make that the front door to the overall development. We wanted people to come to that front door. And the reality is, from where the transit stops are, you can actually access the transit stops and the El Camino just as easily from Flora Vista as you can from the El Camino Real. So we took this dual approach. What we don't have is through circulation. And most of our parking is internal to the building in a secure garage. So we won't have people racing through the property because of that. We'll have a secured parking area. We're discussing actually having the gateway have secure parking, have a secure gate at the entry as well. And so we don't anticipate it being a racing track because of that. It's going to be very slow moving. It's going to have families, and that's going to be the predominance. We did keep the access on Flora Vista, and we understand the curve on the road. But by the way we create the clearance around it, the way we design the edges to the driveway, et cetera, we feel that will enhance the visibility there and make it easier for people coming in or exiting. It's a much safer access into the site than it would be if they were trying to stop and pull off on the El Camino. And we feel that it'll be a safe egress as well.
Thank you, Rick. Alicia, do you have any comments about the electric bike idea?
I am intrigued. I know they're becoming so much more popular. I think that is, I definitely am interested in looking into that, but we haven't tried that before. So yeah, duly noted.
All right, we have 3 raised hands. Justine, do you want to go through them?
Yep. Vince, you're unmuted.
Hey there. Hey there. My name's Vince Rocha, and my day job is at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, advocating for more housing, but actually have a personal connection to this part of Santa Clara. I grew up there and went to the high school around the corner. And, you know, just personally saying that as someone who lived in deed restricted affordable housing when I was in school, we had to live across town because there wasn't enough housing nearby amenities and schools like in that area. So just seeing that an affordable housing development is possible, you know, in walking distance to the high school and on El Camino. You know, my family had 1 car only. I had a bus pass growing up. And, you know, I think it's totally feasible to have a transportation, you know, based household. And some of my favorite restaurants I walk to, I don't drive to. So I think it's possible to have businesses that can support the neighborhood that people could enjoy and walk to. But I guess my question is, you know, how are you all working with, you know, PTA and others to make sure that, you know, your residents have good access to the transit in the area?
Alicia, there's another question about transit passes. Why don't?
Yeah, let's group that together. We have not yet had a direct conversation with VTA yet. That is something that we have done on some developments, particularly where the funding sources can help cover some of that cost of providing transit passes. We're not sure that we're going to use that particular source on this development. So we will look into it, and it may be something that we have, because we're not pursuing that particular source, the state's Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program. We may have some more flexibility actually in getting a number of passes and making them available, you know, on an as needed basis. So that's something we can look into. Thanks.
And would you mind talking about the public transportation options on?
Oh yeah, so there are, I think the person noted, you know, a couple of quite frequent bus lines that run right along El Camino. Somebody asked about the north-south connection. I cannot cite chapter and verse of the transit routes off the top of my head. But one thing we do at our developments that we've, you know, as we're integrating more transportation management and car management strategies with our residents, is to have our on-site staff, both our, you know, resident services staff and our property management staff, be very well versed in public transit. And being able to help, or sometimes we'll have like an information kiosk that helps people, especially when they first move to the area, if they haven't already lived right in this particular neighborhood, to get used to like, oh, okay, if I catch this bus at that time, I can connect to that. And so they can help kind of be like a liaison to the transportation options. And that's something that our resident services staff can help people do.
Thank you. And I appreciate everybody staying and listening to the questions, even though they're past 7, so thank you. Why don't we go back to a couple of live questions?
David, you're unmuted.
David might have asked his questions earlier in the meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a second question, and it was about the application for housing and when that would open up, and whether or not the applications were just based off of income, or if there was any other factors that would determine eligibility?
Yeah, great question. So the application, usually we open up the application process about halfway through construction. So it's roughly maybe 6 months before the end of construction. And we will, that application process, you know, there's so much demand for affordable apartments that exceed the supply. So typically what we'll do is we'll have a pre-application process where it's very simple. You're kind of just providing, the applicant would provide their household size and what size apartment they're hoping for, and the income characteristics. And then when we get around to like, okay, great, we're ready and then get assigned, everybody would get, all those applications would get assigned a lottery number. And then we would start processing the applications and really getting a full-blown application, learning who all is in the household, what are each of their income amounts, and then doing a more of a regular rental application process where there would be an interview and references and a credit check and a background check, criminal background check. And, everybody would get vetted on like a normal, regular market rate landlord would do, but we just add the income qualification to that. And that would be for the 3/4 of the apartments. The one or the 30%, that's for the 70%. For the 30% where it is designated for folks coming out of homelessness or at risk of homelessness, those would be getting referred from the county and the county programs that are assisting people who are unhoused or experiencing homelessness. So that's a separate path.
Thank you, Alicia.
And I hope that maybe answers, I saw the question early in the questions about sex offenders that, and that would be, I guess, part of the review of the applicants. The existing motel residents, we probably will, when we get ready to do the major new construction, everybody will, the whole site will need to be vacated. And we're going to be helping relocate anybody who has been there long enough that they have become eligible for relocation assistance. So we will be helping folks at that time prior to the major construction in a couple of years, anybody who's still there to relocate. And we've been reaching out to those, the longer term, there are a handful of guests at the motel who've been living there for a while. And so we've reached out to them and provided them with some information about the assistance that that they may be eligible for in the future if they're still there and in good standing.
Alicia, I'm reading the Q&A, and while you're on this subject, could you talk about security on site? They asked particularly if there's going to be a security guard there, but maybe you can security.
Yeah, I think that the security, that's one of the things I really like about Van Meter Williams Pollock's design, is that really there is one main entrance. Yes, there is a secondary entrance just for residents to use, but anybody visiting or coming by car is only going to pass through one site, and that's exactly where the property manager's office is. And so that provides a good amount of kind of oversight of what's going on. We do, and visitors will need to kind of be, buzzed in. We will be evaluating, often we do have a desk clerk, which is kind of the same as a security guard, to greet people and address any situation that may occur at the entrance, and just to help folks get to where they need to go. We do use cameras, security cameras, and we put a lot of thought into where those are pointing so that they really are capturing any like openings onto the street, so or any other maybe potential areas of concern, so that we can address an issue before it becomes a problem. And our our intent is to be a good place to live and a good neighbor to live nearby. And so we really wanted to also tonight, and over the last few weeks, begin to introduce ourselves, and we will we'll be your neighbor. And so, if you're living next to us, you will know who the property manager is, and our property management and our resident services, those are different people, because our resident services will really help if it's a resident who's actually causing a problem. We have the mechanism, we have house rules, and you have to be living within those house rules. And if you're in violation, then that's going to start jeopardizing your lease. And that's when our resident services will help any resident who's having a problem, fulfilling their commitments to being a good community member, to help them really make a plan for how do they get back into good shape with being a good neighbor.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge somebody in the Q&A said that we have been referring to the homes behind the hotel as condos, but they're single family homes, and we understand that they're single family homes. Yeah. And the rule and the way that we designed the project is the same if it was single family homes or condos. We kept the motels so that there wouldn't be much change, and we feel like we designed the project 85 to 90 feet away so that we would be considerate of privacy, whether it was a condo or a single family home. But we will correct that. Thank you.
Or multifamily apartments.
Yes. How about the last? There's one more live question.
Emily, you should be unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Emily Ann Ramos with Silicon Valley at Home, and just wanting to register our support for this project because it's in a very transit-rich corridor in Santa Clara County, and it's really good that developers are meeting the community to gather input, and we support that endeavor. We support the affordability components of this project and think it's a really good use of land. On a personal level, I think about how my grandfather, he passed away when I was in high school, but my entire lifetime I've known my grandfather. He took the bus everywhere. If you have the opportunity to have a transit lifestyle where you don't have to take your car everywhere, it is more friendlier to seniors, and it is more friendlier for our environment so that we don't have to rely on our gas and car dependencies, as long as we make the opportunities for those to happen. Thank you so much for this project, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Randy, there's a question about the wall a couple times, separating the residential from the single family homes, whether that's going to be extended.
Rick,
yeah.
And I'm not sure where it's supposed to be extended to. It goes along the back property line.
They mean extended up, you think?
That's what would be my guess. Yeah, are we extending it up?
Well, it's not on our property, so we are not extending that existing wall up. What we are anticipating, and we will have it secure so no one can go into the back behind the buildings. We have the parapet wall of the roof that we're anticipating maybe raising a couple of feet, but not significantly, because we don't want to make it into a well. But we're going to keep that area back there clear of people, and we don't feel that building that wall taller would make any significant difference. It's very tall now, and we feel building another fence next to it wouldn't achieve any additional security. But we gladly work on the back of the building to make sure that we don't create any additional privacy issues, et cetera.
Rick, while you're chatting, there's a question I think you can answer. The new building seems quite tall. Has it been looked at light as how it will affect the light coming into the houses that are right behind the new building? How is that?
We have done some initial solar studies, and just the basic orientation of the site makes it not really create shadows on the surrounding properties behind it. It shades the parking lot of the restaurant some at the end of the day, and the other motel some in the morning. But basically, once the sun starts coming around, it's not really impacting the solar for the homes behind it. And we'll do additional solar studies on that to kind of reconfirm that, but our initial studies show that the orientation won't impact the surrounding residents.
Justine, could you kindly show the second to last slide, because that's where the initial shadow stay that Rick is mentioning is. Yeah.
Oops.
Sorry.
Slide 46.
So this is from the viewpoint of looking south across El Camino Real. So at this point, El Camino is basically running east-west. So of course we're in the Northern Hemisphere. The sun is actually gonna be cast kind of east to west or north, but not go south.
Yeah, so we've studied it at various times of day, throughout the day. The last one's kind of at night, but you can see in the morning, it basically just shades a little bit to the right. And then as you proceed through the day, it rotates around the building along the residential neighborhood and projects its shadows onto the El Camino. And then as it proceeds the rest of the way around in the late afternoon, it projects over towards the restaurant, but it doesn't really impact the residential neighborhood.
Thank you, Rick. There's just a comment in the Q&A that's just asking us about the windows that were put into the motel.
Sure. Why don't you go back to the slides that were just before that, because we have studied. Go to the first of those three. No, that one there. So this is the existing view and the existing wall. And what we are showing there is the single family homes adjacent. They may be a little farther away from the property line. We don't have that on the survey. This is showing it at about 10 feet. Parts of it are, I believe, 15 feet away as well. That's the existing motel roof adjacent to it, and it shows somebody looking from the third floor, and they kind of look down on the roof. Now, if you're looking at the motel from the parking lot, there's tile, but if you look down at the motel from this side of the building, it's a built-up roof. And so we've looked at two different kind of ideas on how we could redesign. That roof's leaking right now. You can tell by the blue tarps on it. And so we want to put a new roof on it and potentially put solar panels, but we do want to reduce the impact of the visibility from the adjacent neighbors. Next slide. So this is sort of what we're thinking right now, and I'd love to get your input on it. We wanted to have just one simple roof slope, so it's sloping away. It may add 2 to 3 feet maximum, but it wouldn't block the view from the residents' third floor view. So we're raising it up just slightly to get a slope on the roof. And you can notice that we've even shown the solar panels, which can be within 12 inches of the sloped roof. So we might add a couple of feet, if need be, to the roof there. And then I also showed windows, because we're starting to think about that, whether we just have them on the first floor or we also have them on the second floor. Those could also be obscure glass. They could be fixed. We do need, if they become a bedroom, we need them to be able to be operable though, so they couldn't be a fixed window. And we know that that could create some privacy issues. So we'll look into that very closely when we get a little bit more input into kind of the exact layout of our neighbors, as well as the exact layout of each of the units that we're including. Currently, they don't have any walls. It's just a blank wall on the back. And we might be able to continue that on the upper floor if the privacy is the issue there. We'll have to look into that and continue to work on that. We did do another scheme, which we sort of, it would probably be the less expensive scheme in a way, if you go to the next slide. And that was a built-up roof with the solar panels. The parapets often kind of hide it, but if you're up on the top floor, you can see, we felt that you could still see the roof there and any equipment that was on it. So by doing a sloped roof, we would not put any additional equipment on the roof that would create a negative appearance. And that's why we were looking more at option one, but if somebody really feels strongly that we should look at option two, we could consider it. But we felt it was less impactful to the adjacent homes.
Thank you, Rick. There's a question, and I think the question is: Are there other projects either finished or planned in the area? Is there a list somewhere? I think that might be for the city. I'm not sure.
All right, just unmute myself there. Thank you for asking that question. Actually, we don't have a ongoing list in planning, but in the housing development, we would know if there's any future projects or current projects right now. This is the only one I know of that is active now. But my contact is on this slide that you're seeing. Feel free to email me, and if there's such a list, I will respond and send it over to you. Thank you.
I'm just, I think a lot of the questions left are, there's some of them about parking on Flora Vista, and I think we've heard some of the concerns about parking on Flora Vista and in the neighborhood, and we will continue to address that and see how we can resolve that. Ben, do you see anything that?
No, I think the ones about the interim use, I think Alicia answered already about the population of the interim use. I think those were answered. Yeah, I don't.
And then I just want to assure people, this is our first community meeting. We're knocking on some of the doors. We're trying to get your input. There's one or two people that have expressed that this is the first time that they've heard about the project. My email and Steve's email are right there on the screen. This doesn't have to be the last time you hear about the project. Let's keep talking. We want to be good neighbors and make this project something that you're proud of.
And one person asked in the question Q&A, can we share the plan with the residents on the back once we have finalized it or have additional information? And yes, absolutely, we'd be happy to do that. And another person asked, can trees be planted between the development and the new houses to provide increased security?
So I'll just suggest that there's only 3 feet between the property line and the new houses on our side of the property. So that isn't really a solution. I think we'll look very closely as to whether or not we need second floor windows, and in trees along property lines provide privacy sometimes, but they don't generally provide additional security. So, but I'll just say that in the past, if somebody took a picture from their living room on the second floor or on the third floor and told us where it was taken from, we would try to evaluate what that view would look like. We've done that in the past and could do that if somebody wanted to do that, rather than us going into the home or anything. So, but we're conscious about wanting to preserve the privacy of the adjacent residents, and to that end, we will look very closely on the apartments there and whether or not we can achieve what we need to achieve without windows looking out on the rear homes.
And let me just pause for a moment of like, why are we thinking about even doing that? Because the whole idea, I think Rick mentioned it briefly, is the motel rooms, like motel rooms, are quite small. They are small compared to what you might think about as like renting a studio apartment. So the architects were looking at the possibility of combining, let's say, 3 motel rooms and turning them into two apartments, each with kind of a small separate bedroom, so that they become a larger, more comfortable place to live for the long term. It's not a place that you're gonna like feel like, oh, I'm tired of this tiny place, I want to move out. So it accomplishes the goal of having a really stable tenant population, which is a positive. We don't want a lot of turnover. We really want to build community here. But I do hear you that I'm now hearing, like, you know, the concern about adding a bedroom means having a window in the back. So yeah, like Rick was saying, we'll be studying that, the trade-offs.
Thank you. I just want to say the couple of outstanding questions are really the same. It's about the privacy and the parking.
Yeah.
And there's one question, there's one raised hand I see. If it's 7:30, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Why don't we get to the raised hand? And if there's somebody that has a burning question that we haven't got to, please raise your hand and we'll answer it. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to me and Steve, and we'll get your questions answered in a different way. So raised hand, Catherine.
Catherine, you're unmuted. Catherine, you're unmuted.
From Catalyze SV.
Hi, thanks very much. I think this is a great project and I look forward to future meetings.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I just noticed that there's somebody added a new question in the Q&A, and I think it's important that we answer that. My backyard is open to the motel and people from the motel throw trash and smoke into my backyard. I am worried about the increase in these activities. Oh, Alicia, can you take that one?
Yeah, that is good for us to know. Thank you for sharing that. And that would be the type of activity that would not be permitted in our house rules and lease agreement with our residents on the permanent housing side. And so that if that was something that continued to happen once the new, the full-blown development plan was in place, then you're welcome to let our property manager know. We would appreciate it if you would let our property manager know at that time. And that's something that we can help address. And it's same thing with in the interim use. It will be something that we want to help our residents be good neighbors and So that's something that we will have some tools to work with them on.
Thank you.
And somebody asked earlier, I saw it in a Q&A about smoking inside. Some of our buildings, we do make non-smoking buildings. I don't know that we've ever done smoke detectors, like cigarette or you know, marijuana smoke detectors. Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I wasn't aware of that being something that we could do, but definitely we can look into the possibility of having a smoke-free building, or with 2 buildings. That's something that we can look into.
All right, well, I want to I think we got through all the questions, and that's great. I'm really happy about that. And then again, Stephen Mai's email, I can't say it enough, is on the screen. We mean it. We want you to reach out. We want to hear from you. And I understand there's a few outstanding issues. We're going to take these questions that we learned today, and we're going to put them into our design and into our program, and we're going to think about this. So please stay in touch. Alicia or Rick, is there anything that you want to say before we hang up? Steve?
I would just welcome also if you know, if you're part of the single family homes right behind us, if there is you know, an association meeting, or if you want to, you know, talk with us one-on-one, like Randy said, feel free to reach out one-on-one, or if there's a larger group that you wanted us to come talk to, we can make arrangements to do that as well. And thank you so much for your time and your interest, and hope that we get to meet in person someday.
Thank you.
And no further questions from city staff.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, just thank you everyone for the questions, and thank you for our city to host this community meeting.
Right.
Good night, everybody. Enjoy your night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.